Hello and welcome. My name is Scott Suskovic. I'm pastor at Christ Lutheran Church, and welcome to this podcast that we call Deeper Dive, in which we take a look at the previous Sunday's sermon and go at a deeper level for a great conversation. We're glad you're here. Hey, welcome to this next podcast of A Deeper Dive. Pastor Scott here and
Pastor Adrian.
And together we're going to go a little deeper on Sunday's message. We're doing this sermon series, Modern Idols. Mm-hmm. You've been enjoying it?
I have. I think this is a great sermon series for Lent because the Lenten discipline is about removing those things that separate us from God and adding things in to help draw us closer to God. And idols are something that we can always address.
Yeah. And what I also like about it is that I don't know if this is our theological training in pastor school, but there are sometimes we get into a theological nuance that they really don't care about. But for us, it's really interesting to understand this Greek word and the nuance over here. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we find ourselves scratching an itch that nobody has. Mm-hmm. But in this sermon series on modern idols, boy, talking about money and sex and politics and
work.
Last Sunday work, that is as practical as we can get. I'm envisioning my preaching professor saying, but where is the theology? Where is the cross? Where is the... Mm-hmm. And they push us back. Maybe we'll hit that next sermon series.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think it's there. That's the reality of human sin and being human, that things get in the way. And Christ does that for us. So I'm sure we'll finish up this next week. It's our last week in the sermon series. That's coming up.
Coming up, yeah. So when we talked about work, we talked about the dichotomy in Scripture. First of all, it comes to a blessing. In the Garden of Eden, Adam was placed there to work. God was at work. Adam is at work, and it is a gift. And those of us who work, particularly if we enjoy our work and it provides for our family, we love it. Mm-hmm. We don't want to do it 24/7, but it is a blessing. And if you're underemployed or unemployed, boy, any kind of work comes to us as a gift.
Mm-hmm. I love to imagine in that Genesis passage, Genesis 1, how it must have been for Adam. What his day looked like. If he went and he was tilling the ground, but it was fruitful and it was satisfying.
Yeah.
And how the curse changed that. What was that next day like?
What about you, Pastor Adrian? About what job did you dislike the most in your life?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. That's a hard question.
You think about it. I've got one.
Okay, you go ahead, Pastor Scott.
All right. During seminary, I worked construction. And I worked for a sole contractor, and we did kind of house renovation, house stuff. And I had never done it before. I wasn't good at it. My dad never taught me. But he needed the help, and I was kind of grunt labor. So I really didn't know what I was doing, and the end product wasn't that good. Did I like it? I liked the variety from, reading theological books to working with my hand. I like that. But I also realized that that's not what I'm going to do the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. It was a good means to an end. I appreciated the work. Didn't like it. I appreciate it, but it helped pay tuition and living expenses, and so I was grateful for it.
Yeah, wow. You just did what you needed to do and got through it. But, I think that it's really important to find those things that you don't like so you can find the things you do. I think that is just as important. Yep. And so I think of one. It wasn't a paid job, but it was when I was in high school, I was a student helper, and part of my job was to sit in and take notes for someone in a shop class. I was the worst person to do this. My notes were terrible. Anyway, I met the parent of the person I was making the notes for, and they're like, "We do not understand your notes." and it's because I wasn't engaged. I didn't like the subject. I didn't understand some of the terms because I was coming in late. Yeah. So it was something that, it wasn't fulfilling at all, even if I like the note taking. So I think the subject matters.
Right.
And even if you're helping someone, there still has to be some giftedness and interest in the
So
subject.
when we put this modern idol of work to the test with the 3 Ds we've been working on, this was easy. Work can always divide us.
Yeah.
Whether it's another relationship on trying to beat that person up for a job, a promotion, or a sale, or what it does to us within divides me from my joy, my happiness, my true self. That was easy. Devour, sometimes the work can be all of who I am, all encompassing. It takes over my identity, my hours, my day, my everything else. And then do I defend myself? Yes, of course I do. I have to go to work. I have to pay the bills. I'll have free time, when the case is done, when the sale is done, when the case is over, we'll defend ourselves there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
But the text we kept on coming back to was this. It was from Colossians. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord. What did you get out of that text? I mean, there's a lot directions we can go with that, but whatever you do, it could be a job, could be volunteer, could be staying at home, could be cooking your meal.
Yeah.
Work at it with all your heart. That's a good one. Don't do it halfway. Don't do it haphazardly. Do it with all your heart. Yeah. And realize that your boss is not the one paying your paycheck, but your boss is God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about that going into any of your jobs?
Yeah, definitely. There have been things that, 'cause that's what I took out of it, is that, even if it's not the most fulfilling thing, that it matters how we go about it. And so there have been jobs maybe I've been more or less passionate about, but being, while I'm there, being all in, because that's not going to change it. It's like worry.
Yeah.
You can worry about something, but that's not really going to change it unless you take action.
Yeah,
it's not a strategy. Right. That's really well said. Worry is not a strategy. And I think that your heart not being in something isn't a strategy either. So when you're there and you're doing something, give it all you got. And then if you need to change your circumstances, then change them. It made me think of, because a lot of times we think about pastors and rostered ministers thinking that they're, we're always fulfilled, and it is a fulfilling calling, but people are called to different roles. And even outside of their jobs, when I was in Hickory, there was a person on the maintenance staff at the apartment place where I lived, and he used to help people who didn't have people to help them with maintenance things. Yeah. And he did it beyond his job. And that really helped bring that to life for me, because he cared so much, even though he probably wasn't super excited about going somewhere after work to help someone with some bookshelves. It made all the difference to me, and that helped me realize that when I help someone, when they can't do it, how much it matters, that you don't have a bad attitude about it, and you care enough about what you do to share it in a larger way.
I think what helps with that is that you see the larger picture, that this guy with maintenance or repair, you could very easily say that my job is to, clean the church or change the light bulbs. But if you see the greater vision of what you're doing, you're a single cog in a larger machine, it makes a difference. Give you an example. Down in Waxhaw, there is this amazing ministry called JARS, Jungle Air and Aviation Radio, something like that.
Wow, okay.
All right. So they've been around for a long, long time. What they do is that they find a missionary, and they take them through 2 years of language school. And if they go into like remote part of South America, they actually have to drop them in there with a airplane, and then they have to go in there. They have to learn the language of this indigenous tribe. After they learn the language, they have to then create an alphabet for that language. After they do that, they have to teach the people how to read in their own language. After that, then he has to translate the New Testament into that language. And after that, he can then teach them. So it's like 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
Before they even begin to teach the Bible.
Okay.
And the person that goes in there, it's not like, I'm going to do missionary work for 3 to 5 years, and then I'm going to go. No, it's a lifetime commitment.
Right.
Because the language takes a long time. All right, that's what they do. Mm-hmm. But I remember talking to a person down there that I thought was in maintenance. So I asked him, so you're working for JARS, what do you do here? And his answer was, I do language translation into the Bible. I said, really? Because he didn't look like, he looked like a maintenance guy. I said, really? You do translation into the Bible? He says, yeah. My part of it is to change the light bulbs.
Oh, wow.
Fix the airplane, take care of the car.
Yeah.
But he realized that he was part of that whole cog.
Right.
And that changed his attitude. It changed his attitude altogether.
Yeah. Well, it makes a difference because without his help and his work in that area, there would be something that was falling short.
Right.
It would take someone else from their work, and it is part of the larger mission. I mean, all these parts are valuable.
I hope that the 50-some people on staff, if you were to stop each one of them and you were to ask them, what do you do at Christ Lutheran? They would say, we welcome all believers, we connect them, we welcome all people, connect them to other believers, equip them with God's word, and send them into all the world.
Yes.
We hope they would say that.
I hope so.
And my part of it is to do technology.
Right.
Or to play the guitar or something else.
Right. Yeah, we hope so.
That's what Colossians is getting at. Whatever you do, from the light bulbs to technology to preaching, work at it with all your heart. I'm all in. I'm all in to the greater vision. Because my boss there is not Pastor Scott. It is working for the Lord.
Right. Right. Well said. Yeah, and it's for the kingdom. And the kingdom is larger than what we can imagine.
Right.
And there's so many ways we don't even know we contribute to it most of the time. I think when we focus on being Christ to each other, you made that point, that when we are priests to each other, that we make a difference, and that's working in the kingdom.
When I prepare a sermon, oftentimes I do think of an individual or a conversation I've had and thinking if I were to speak with this person one-on-one, so I'm not preaching a sermon, but I'm teaching, conversing this lesson, how would I say it in a way that they could receive it? It makes it very personal for the sermon part. But as I was writing this one, I thought, what about the person that sees the divide? That is, they don't like what their job is doing to themselves. They see the devour. That is, it is consuming my every waking moment and thought. They see the defense. Oh, I have to do this. I can't really do anything else. I got to provide for the family. It pays a good salary. It'll be done in a couple of years. I guess my question then is, how would I speak to that person that acknowledges that work has become an idol?
Right.
But what do I do about it?
What's next? Yeah. Because I remember in the introduction to the Green Bible, a doctor went through. The Green Bible is a Bible, in the Red Letter Bible, all of Jesus' words are read. Well, the person who wrote or who not edited, the Bible in the green version was all creation verses, everything about the earth, everything about stewardship, went through and made it all green. And there's a lot. And his story is that he was a doctor and he worked in that for years. He had a huge house, lots of cars, lots of vacations. They went on this one vacation and this great emptiness just fell upon him. And he ended up radically changing his life. They downsized radically. He left medicine and he decided to just work on the Bible and changing his life to be a messenger for Christ and the church. And, but sometimes that's just not something someone can do.
No, he had the resources to be able to walk away from it. So I think that person that recognizes idol and they're asked, well, then what? I think it's hard. If you can recognize it slipping into it, you can maybe stop the car. But if you're plowed into it, and you've been doing this now for years, it's hard to back that car up.
Yeah.
So I think for that person, if I were to have this conversation over coffee with this person, I would ask them how they got to this position. Mm-hmm. And I bet it's a good reason. I mean, the doctor goes in, and the pastor goes in, the lawyer goes in, the stay-at-home goes in, and somehow it changes. Mm-hmm. For them to be able to recapture that passion that set them on this course. Mm-hmm. I remember I went to a pastor's conference huge. I mean, they filled up this arena. And one talk was the burning bush. And for the whole talk, it went for like half hour, 45 minutes. He had each one of us visualizing our call. Where were you? How did you know that this was the direction? What did God say? What was a feeling there, and everything else? And what it did, there was so many clergy there that were burned out, probably went to that conference thinking this is my last shot or else I'm getting out altogether.
Wow.
And he was able to get us returned to our burning bush. So I would say to that person that recognizes this, let's get back to your burning bush. How did you get into this? Where did God gift you? How did the turns happen? And if we can reclaim that burning bush, if we can reclaim what that maintenance person said, I do Bible translation and not just changing light bulbs. I think that goes a long way to minimizing that modern idol into something that's pleasing once again to God.
Wow. Yeah, almost being reminded and putting it in perspective. What was the original passion and calling? And it's larger than just whatever that role is.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we can talk about that another time, about each one of our callings.
Yeah.
Well, this coming Sunday, we're going to be talking about the most insidious, most difficult, the most overwhelming modern idol of all time. And that's me. Yeah, we get ourselves in the way and we become that idol, the center of the universe. And so we're going to tackle that next week. So glad you could join us for this edition of Deeper Dive. It's Pastor Scott saying goodbye and
Pastor Adrian saying goodbye too.
all right, we'll see you next week.